Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Mindful Moments session. I am Sarah Carter, one of the Complementary therapists, and Helen Ashton will also be taking the session with me. And today we're looking at panic attacks, what you can do to help yourself, what you can do to help somebody else if you know someone who is having them. The panic attacks are really, really horrible. In fact, they can be so serious at times that people really feel like there's something wrong, have hospital admissions, and to know that so much stress is bringing about so many physical symptoms for a person is very, very terrifying. And I think it's got a good name, panic attacks, because we do panic when we experience them and we panic after as a result of them. A panic attack on a very bodily level is the overproduction of adrenaline. So something is going on. You might be responding to an event that's actually happening, or it might be as a chronic build-up of stress or something that happened before. There's lots of different triggers and reasons why we have a panic attack, but essentially what is happening is the body feels threatened, our minds feel threatened, and so do our emotions. We feel, for whatever reason, on a number of levels, that we are under threat. And so we start ramping up adrenaline, and that's the fight and flight response. So we're ready to take action or we're ready to run. And even as I'm talking now, I'm trying to animate for you what starts happening. We start to tense up, we start to speed up, and everything is a little bit panicky. We become hypersensitive, hyper alert. And even if we're doing the wonderful swan analogy, where to everyone else we're coming across lovely and calm and cool, while our feet are manically going underneath us, at some level we are going to feel the impact of this adrenaline buildup that has no release, especially if we're masking things as being okay when perhaps they're not. So we feel things like heart palpitations, our hearts begin to flutter, they start to speed up. We begin to sweat and go cold. We start to shake, we get numbness, we get tingling. There's all sorts of physical symptoms. But the most frightening part, I think, is what starts happening in our minds, and then what we start to feel as a result of what those thoughts are telling us. So it's not unusual to feel like you're going crazy. It's not unusual to get a sensation of like when you're drunk, but not in a pleasant way. So you're in the room and suddenly you don't actually feel like you are in the room. And it's a sense of a loss of control. You suddenly don't feel like you know what is going on, and you can't control these physical symptoms. And we start to worry that something is very, very wrong. And it's important to say that at this time, if you do have a panic attack, please speak to somebody. Don't try and hide it, okay? And the main thing that we need to do is to start to slow things down. We need to re-regulate everything that's going crazy in our system, okay? So the first thing that we can do is we can come to our breathing. And breathing is something I think we talk about on every single session, regardless of the topic, because it is our number one go-to resource that we overlook all the time. So just as I'm speaking now, you can just gently shake those shoulders. Most of you are seated, or if you are listening to this at home and you can lie down, great. But just allow your eyes to close and just begin to settle. And just do that by concentrating on your breathing, the focus of breathing in and out. And in and out. And just as I'm speaking, just allow that breathing to deepen and to become a little bit slower. So we want to come back to the breath. Now, when someone is having a panic attack, if you are somebody who has panic attacks, I have had them in the past, you will know what I'm talking about. It's very difficult to start just thinking about our breathing and controlling that and slowing it down, because our mind is racing. It's like we are literally fragmented and torn apart by all these different things. It's like reality suddenly blows up in the air. We feel very vulnerable, we feel very unsafe. And so if you are with somebody who is having a panic attack, or you can do this for yourself, you need to use your words and you need to use your tone of voice. So the first thing as you're breathing is to start saying things like, it is okay, it's all right, You can calm down. It's okay. You're all right. And you can begin to calm down. And sometimes, repeating again on past sessions, the havening technique. So as you are breathing now, just gently stroking the arms from the shoulder to the elbow. You can even just do this on one arm, or if you prefer, the back of the hand. But just gently stroking, breathing, and calming down, and reassuring yourself or the person who you are with that they are safe and it is okay, and that these feelings will pass. If that isn't quite working on its own, and if now you have your eyes closed, just open for me so you can see me, we can do the finger counting technique. So if you just follow what I'm doing at the moment, I'm going from the first finger all the way through, up and down. Okay? So even if you're doing this as a visual guide for yourself in the mirror, or for the person, or if it is you, again, like I said, looking in the mirror can help, or sometimes actually watching. And you want to start counting this, and you can do this with me now, okay? So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're going to do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're going to do that again, and this time we're going to do it a little bit slower, and we're going to do it with a gentle smile on our face. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you are helping someone, it's really good to get them to do this with you. So either by yourself, for yourself, or for another person, gentle finger counting. And the reason behind it is we want to bring focus to something else other than the torrent of thoughts that we have going on in our head. Okay? So nice and soothing voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? Another thing that you can do, and you've probably heard this one already, and it is fantastic. So sometimes we know things, but we don't apply them. And today we are talking about panic attacks, but actually these techniques are good even if you're not having an actual panic attack, but even if you feel like your anxiety levels are rising, to calm back down and come back to yourself in your body in the present moment. So just take a look around your room now, wherever you are. Have a little look around, and you want to think of 5 things that you can see. So you want to count 5 things that you can see. I can see Helen in the corner of my eye. I can see a lovely picture. There's lots of white around the walls. I can see the massage table, and I can see my coffee mug. And then you want to come to 4 things you can hear. So you'll be able to hear my voice. There's 1. You might hear traffic in the background or other people talking. But what can you hear? And if you can't hear anything, that's still hearing something. So what can you see? What can you hear? Really important one. 3 things you can feel. So if you are in a panic attack, stand up or have your feet on the floor. So I'm just going to stand up. You want to stand up and walk on the spot. So you can feel your feet on the floor. You want to touch and rub your hands together. And you also want to feel your face. Feel your face, rub your hands, walk the feet, okay? 2 things that you can smell. Might be a tricky one to find, but concentrate. What can you smell? Your own deodorant, your own perfume? Is there somebody cooking? What can you smell? And the last thing, 1 thing you can taste. have some water, have that sip of coffee, have a bite of food, anything, have something in the mouth. Sometimes boiled sweets are really, really good. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. We want to bring the senses to the forefront of our mind so that we can close them in and concentrate on the here and now. Okay, so finger counting, up the fingers and down the fingers, counting 1 to 10. Nice and gently, softly, soothing as you go. And then the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique is really, really good. Okay, so because there is a buildup of adrenaline, one last thing you can do really, really easily, if you feel a panic attack coming on, as well if you're somebody who has these, so you know it's coming, you need to get moving. So shaking the hands really, really vigorously, running on the spot, star jumps, anything. Remember, you need to give expression to this adrenaline that's building, all right? So that's my 3 top tips. I'm just going to hand you over to Helen now, who's going to talk through a couple more. And I'll be back at the end of the session to close the session. Thank you.
Hi there, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. That was really good. Really, really good. So we're going to carry on the theme of, obviously, panic attacks and some other things that we can do to help ourselves. As a reflexologist, which is what I am, we're taught to stimulate the reflex of the vagus nerve, which is on the feet and the hands. And that got me thinking about really what the vagus nerve did and the role it plays in the relationship between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And there's would you know, a theory out called the Polyvagal Nerve theory by a gentleman called Stephen Porges. And he sort of explains that, or his theory is that there's more than just 2 states of being emotionally. So we tend to think of ourselves, we're either absolutely fine or we're really anxious, we're stressed, etc. But, and this is interlinked by the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that goes from the brain all the way through the body and wanders about all over the body as well. Vagus is Latin for wandering, so it's the wandering nerve, and it sits just in front of your spine, going down the front of the back of you, but the front of the spine. And quite often, if you've got vagus nerve problems, let's say, you can have a very, very stiff and painful back that exercise and massage and so forth doesn't really touch. So that might indicate that you've got problem with vagus nerve. So he had this theory that the vagus nerve will actually put you into more than 2 states, more than just being okay and then more than just being anxious and panic attacky. And he said that there's sort of 3 main states. So the first one he calls the ventral vagal social engagement stage, which is where we like to think we are most of the time, connected, relaxed, able to feel joy, we're present in the moment, we feel safe and secure. And then we can move into what he calls a sympathetic activation, which is what Sarah was just describing, where we go into a sort of a flight or fight, adrenaline fueled, possibly a panic attack or an anxiety state, a stress state. We're probably constantly interplaying between those 2 on a daily basis because we're pretty overloaded, aren't we? With sort of stresses coming in from all angles, especially at the moment. And then Stephen Porges said there's another one, and he's named it as the dorsal vagal shutdown, which is the freeze state. And it's apparently a very primal state we go into. So before we fought and fight and flight syndrome, our primary response to stress was to freeze and become immobile. And it must have been some sort of a a survival response, really. Harry Potter would call it a petrification or petrified state. And in that stage, quite often people will appear lethargic. Their emotional state will be hopelessness, very tired all the time, etc. And we can pop between all these states. Sometimes we've got them going on at the same time. And there's different ways of getting out of each state. So obviously we all want to be in the normal, socially engaged ventral vagal state. If we slip into the sympathetic activation state, where we're finding a flight or fight response, and we're tense, and our thoughts become chaotic, and like Sarah was explaining, we're maybe going into panic attack mode. That state is very often helped by breathing, by deep breathing, yoga, gentle movements. And then if we do go into the third state with the dorsal vagal shutdown state, that state is very often helped by vigorous exercise, shaking out, stamping, like Sarah was doing, the stamping on the floor, jumping about, vigorous sort of exercise. So we can constantly go between states, and it's really being aware of what state are you in and how can you help yourself get out of that state. So the sympathetic activation state would be your typical panic attack state, and that would be the breathing and the finger counting that Sarah was doing. And there's also a really good way of giving the vagus nerve a massage on it of itself. And that way is to massage your ears. And I will do a whole sort of 20 minutes on the ear massage at some point in the near future and explain a little bit more about this. But if you're at your desk and you pull your ears out, pull them down, massage them inside. It's not probably the thing to do when you're having a full-blown panic attack, but if you do this regularly, it does keep the vagus nerve in a tip-top condition, and it can help prevent the panic attacks. Okay, so that's my little bit about the vagus nerve, and I will see you soon and hand you back to Sarah. Cheerio.
Thank you, Helen. No worries. Lovely. So we're going to close the session now. Breathe. People, breathe. Okay. It's such a simple thing that you can engage in, which has the most profound benefit. So if you don't do anything else, come back to your breathing. Okay. So panic is with being threatened and unsafe. So it's the reassurance that you are okay. In this moment, you are okay and you can begin to calm down. All right. If anyone needs any further advice or help, then please email us. Oh, getting tongue-tied. Email us at supportivecare@hospiscare.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you soon. Many thanks.